1960. So is our pianists get settled? Better on? Okay, better on.
lies a decade which cannot be compared to any other. The 1960s brought a whole new change to the lives of all Americans. Young people were beginning to speak their minds. A war that nobody wanted began. Protests at college campuses were springing up. The space age was off and running. A sexual revolution was taking place. The hippie movement had begun, and civil rights were at its height. The beginning of the decade brought us a new president, John F. Kennedy, the youngest elected president ever, who took office in the midst of a confrontation with communism and a possible attack by Cuba, who had a new leader. Fidel Castro was at the helm. Tensions were escalating with the communist Soviet Union, one of our allies from the recently ended World War II. And in the Far East, we were on the verge of a war with North Vietnam. On the other hand, however, the 1960s offered us many happy times. The emergence of the Beatles with their new style of music, the continued growth of television, and civil rights leaders who wanted to settle the racial tensions in America. Here comes a glimpse of what we had to face.
There she is. Let's ask her. Betty, is that Jimmy's?
Gee, it must be fun riding with him. Is he picking you up after school today?
By the way, how'd you meet him?
I met him at the candy store. He turned around and smiled at me. You get the picture.
Oh, we see.
That's why they call him leader of the pack.
Began Americans watched in fascination and anticipation from their living rooms as their favorite groups were now being seen as well as heard.
And a good show for you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the brothers from Liverpool, the Beatles!
Elvis Presley. The TV stations were not allowed to show the movements, classified them as too risque. So only the upper half of Elvis was allowed to be shown to the public. Even Barbara Eden was not allowed to show her navel on I Dream of Jeannie, which began in 1965.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley!
Crying all the time. Thank you very much.
The 1960s were a colorful time for the young generation. Bright colors were displayed in fashion and art as well as graffiti. The effects of LSD and other hallucinating drugs were associated with psychedelic colors, while the taker was in a high. TV shows like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In featured brightly colored sets and lavish outfits. Bright colors were bursting out everywhere. Consciousness raising. A time to become conscious of the similarities that exist in the difference between us. A time to become aware of and to celebrate other cultures. There is an Indian legend that tells us the story of the rainbow.
Once upon a time, all the colors in the world started to quarrel. Each claimed that she was best, the most important, the most useful, the favorite. Green said, "Clearly I am the most important. I am the sign of life and hope. I was chosen through grass, the trees, leaves. Without me, all the animals would die. Look out over the countryside, and you will see that I am in the majority." Blue interrupted. "But consider the sky and the sea. It is the water and the basins like the mist, drawn up by the clouds from the sea. The sky gives space and peace and serenity. Without my peace, you would be nothing but busybodies." Yellow chuckled. "You're all so serious. I bring laughter, gaiety, and warmth into the world. The sun is yellow, the moon is yellow, the stars are yellow. Every time you look at a sunflower, the whole world starts to smile. Without me, there would be no fun." Orange started next to blow her own horn. "I am the color of health and strength. I may be scarce, but I am precious, for I serve the needs of human life. I carry all the most important vitamins. Just think of carrots, and squash and pumpkins, oranges, mangoes, and pawpaws. I don't hang around all the time, but when I fill the sky at sunrise or sunset, everybody always stops and looks." Red could stand it no longer. She shouted out, "I'm the ruler of you all. I'm blood, life's blood. I'm the color of danger and of bravery. I'm willing to fight for a cause. I bring fire in the blood. Without me, the earth would be empty as the moon. I am the color of passion and of love. The red rose, the poinsettia, and the poppy." Purple rose up to her full height. She was very tall and spoke with great calm.
"I am the color of royalty and power. Kings, chiefs, and bishops have chosen me. So I am a sign of authority and wisdom. People don't question me. They listen and obey.
Indigo spoke much more quietly than all the others, but just as determinedly.
Think of me. I am the color of silence. You haven't noticed me, but without me, you all become superficial. I represent awe and reflection, twilight and deep waters. You need me for balance and contrast, for prayer and inner peace.
And so the colors went on boasting, each convinced that she was the best. They quarreled and became louder and louder. Suddenly there was a startling flash of brilliant white lightning. Thunder rolled and boomed. Rain started to pour down relentlessly. The colors all crept down in fear, drawing close to one another for comfort. Then Rain spoke.
You foolish colors, fighting among yourselves, each trying to dominate the rest. Do you not know that God made you all? For each for a special purpose, unique and different. God loves you all. God wants you all. Join hands with one another and come to me. God will stretch you across the sky, a great bow of color, as a reminder that God loves you all, that you can live together in peace. A promise that God is with you, a sign of hope for tomorrow.
And so, whenever God has used the good rain to wash the world, he puts the rainbow in the sky. Christians and Jews know that it's God's promise to never again flood the earth. All of us should use it as a reminder to appreciate each other.
Ushered in an era of change for the hearing impaired, typewriters for the deaf, TTYs, were invented by a deaf man in 1964 and began to take hold the following decade. The National Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf was founded in 1964, leading to increased respect for and greater proficiency within the profession. The educational philosophy of total communication began to gain acceptance, and signs were again permitted in schools. The National Theater for the Deaf first toured in 1967, spreading awareness and appreciation of American Sign Language throughout the world. That were a big hit during the 60s. Elvis Presley and Frankie Avalon starred in many of these movies, along with Annette Funicello, Troy Donahue, and Fabian. Teens all over America were glued to the televisions, and their imaginations took them to be a part of the Beach Party.
wanted to learn more about the dating world sat in front of their televisions in the early evenings. Shows such as the Newlywed Game and the Dating Game featured real people looking for real love. These shows were a favorite of all ages, and the reruns are shown on some networks today.
To the Dating Game. Tonight we have a charming young lady. I think she's kind of shy. Whose interests are eating, eating, and eating. Here is Bertha. How are you this evening?
Hungry.
You ready to play a game?
You gonna take back?
Sorry. Let's get on with our game.
I want to get back.
Let's meet our contestants. Bachelor number 1 is a computer programmer. Who's interested in gambling, math, and any kind of figures. Let's meet algebra. Bachelor number 2 is a nerdologist. Oops, I'm sorry, neurologist, whose interests are playing head games. Meet Dr. Dan Waring. And bachelor number 3 is an all-American stud, whose interests are himself, beautiful women, and working out. In that order, welcome Jack Hanna. Bertha, are you ready to play our game?
Yeah. Question number 3. You like to go out to eat on your first date?
Not bachelor number 1, but yeah, I do. I get it all calculated out, and the way I figure it, we can probably go by, I don't know, 6 or 7 restaurants.
Great. Number 2. Do you believe in a nice quiet evening at home, surrounded by soda and snacks and sandwiches?
You seem to have a premonition for food. Usually she is straight. Maybe it's a nervous condition. I could set you up for an appointment.
Oh, maybe later, but I got the question for number 3. How do you evaluate women, number 3?
Well, women to me are like candy bars to you. I love them all.
Oh, I bet he loves to eat.
Time is up, Bertha. Who do you choose? Will it be bachelor number 1, bachelor number 2, or bachelor number 3?
I like him all of them. But what does this come from? I'll take number 3.
Okay, bachelor number 3 has been chosen. Let us meet the contestants that you did not choose. Bachelor number 1 is the computer programmer who likes figures. Bachelor number 2 is a nerd, I did it again, neurologist whose interests are testing your brain. Meet Dr. Dan Waring. And now, Bertha, for the man you picked as your mate. Bachelor number 3, his interests are himself and beautiful women, in that order.
Of the decade. We learned how to do the twist, the mashed potato, and a favorite in the early part of the decade, the locomotion. Our state lecturer is going to help us with
and we're going to learn some lingo in the 60s. Ladies, has an expression that came out in the 1960s. And we're going to start laying on it.
Great.
Cool, excellent. The word heavy. Yeah, deep and chaotic, yeah. Bread. You don't do that one. How about a chrome dome? I don't see. Oh, God. You guys are just as good. How about a dune? A D. How about a pad? To pound someone. Yeah. Oh, we're hearing from all bullies in the audience now, aren't we? Okay, how about to dig? You understand? Pig or fuzz? We won't go with that one. And a gas. That was funny. And now we all remember the lingo, and we still talk like that today, but those words all mean something different. Thank you, ladies.
Why do people drive so fast, ma'am?
I don't know, dear. People do crazy things these days. Some shouldn't be driving.
Can I drive this time?
No, I think I better drive.
But you drive too fast.
No. Let me show you how it's done.
Come on, let's get going.
Yep.
I've got other things to do.
Come on, time's a waste.
We'll never get there today. Television ads of the 1960s was quite productive for its time. Remember this ad?
Got sidetracked along the way, but I haven't given up yet. I did have a friend that made it. He was the one of the people who had to abandon their cars and walk in.
He never saw the main bandstand, but he was still there. It was estimated that 500,000 people were there, and a couple of 100,000 or so never made it in. My friend said it really didn't matter if you didn't get to the main event, because local bands had set up outside and were playing for free.
Financially, Woodstock was a disaster, and they had monumental problems getting into bands with food shortages and even a way to fuel porta-johns. But from Ricky Haven's opening to the Jim Hendrix finish, it didn't matter. Over 30 years later, the event is still legendary. I think it's because of that dream of the 60s. Peace, love, and happiness. If ever it was accomplished, it was at Woodstock. The war in Vietnam was growing. They were riots, demonstrations, and natural disasters, political scandals, a moon landing, and violent murders. Still in the middle of everything for 3 days in August 1969. The world took notice of our hippies that were going to be the ruination of the nation. We made history.
True, there were drugs and there was sex, but most of all, there was rock and roll. Richie Havens, Country Joe McDonald, and the Fish, John Sebastian, Santana, Canned Heat, Treating, Clearwater Revival, Janis Joplin, Slide, and the Family Stone. The Who's, Jefferson Band playing, Joe Crawford, the band Johnny Winter, Crosby, Still, Nash, and Young, the Butterfield Blues Band, Jimi Hendrix, and even Shine the Night. Some were already well known, some were just beginning to be known, and some were probably made so by Woodstock. Can you imagine gathering together us that statue today?
There were 3 deaths, one being run over by a tractor, but there were 2 bursts. They shut down the interstate highways. Bethel, where the concert was actually held, temporarily became one of the largest cities in New York. Volunteers swept up and the Spirit brought food. Police volunteered for security. Doctors and nurses gave their time to treat injuries and overdoses. It seemed to me that Woodstock was the apex of the dreams we had for a better world. The American people got to see the first televised debate on national television. Senator Kennedy stood tall and proud during the debate, while Nixon was nervous. This television debate changed the minds of the people about Senator Kennedy. In November, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was elected president. In 1961, he gave his famous speech.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Kennedy was responsible on May 5th, 1961, for getting the first American in space. He wanted to have a man on the moon and back before the decade was over. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was a major event in the Western Hemisphere. Kennedy handled the situation for the good of the American people, and the crisis ended. The following year, President Kennedy is assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The American people were in mourning. Their president was gone. Martin Luther King Jr. emerged in 1963 as a great civil rights leader. On August 28, 1963, over 200,000 peaceful demonstrators of equal rights for black and white in Washington, D.C. heard the famous speech, "I Have a Dream." Part of the speech goes like this.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged by the color of their skin, not by the color of their skin, but of conscience.
Dr. King spread the demand for civil rights throughout the country. His speeches were made throughout the country. People listened to his powerful messages. The war against discrimination was beginning to win. In April 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. Another American favorite in his prime had been shot. The American people were again in mourning. At the same time that Martin Luther King Jr. was spreading the civil rights movement, another important American figure was also involved in the movement. Senator Robert Kennedy was a loyal, devoted brother to John. Robert stood by his brother and was his campaign manager in 1960. After John got elected, Robert's popularity grew and he emerged as a strong politician and civil rights leader. So popular he was a candidate for president in the 1968 election year. At the Democratic Convention in Los Angeles in June 1968, Bobby Kennedy, the promising young politician and strong candidate to become our next president, met the same fate as his brother almost 5 years before. A third American favorite, not yet in his prime, was gone. The American people were in mourning. space program had literally taken off like a rocket, and the vision of a man on the moon was no longer just a vision. It was to become a reality. Apollo 11 was about to land on the moon. Another era in the space program was about to begin. Americans were glued to their televisions on July 20, 1969, awaiting history. At 4:18 p.m., it finally happened. History had been made. Neil Armstrong's famous words as he stepped on the moon will live forever in infamy.
That was one small step for man, but a giant leap for mankind.
That takes us to the end of the decade, of one of the most radical and colorful decades of all time. Even today, we look upon the 1960s as the decade of a number of changes in civil, political, and to the person himself. We reached a new awareness during that 10-year span. America was challenged in many ways, within and by other countries. The world had changed. We had changed. All eyes on the horizon to wonder what the future was going to bring to our nation. Could we have you all join us in your prayer?